Hi, so here we're going to work on Hamlet's to be or not to be, and I'll break it down as I go. I'll go line by line as much as I can for the meaning. So if you like this, please subscribe, hit the like button, and I'm outdoors, so you're gonna hear a lot of noise, but I'm doing this spontaneously. So there's a plane there and whatever. Anyway, here we go. To be or not to be. So to be, right? To be is to be, right? Do you want to continue to be, to exist, to live, or not to be? Or not to exist, not to be? That is the question. Now, whether it is nobler in the mind, is it nobler in the mind to suffer the slings, the slings and arrows? If you take a sling and arrow and they shot at you, they kept shooting you, the slings and arrows, in those days, slings and arrows, right at you. Now, whether it is nobler, is it nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune? That's obvious, right? You have a terrible fortune, you're just... like the worst nightmare. Your life is just the worst nightmare. Everything that could go wrong goes wrong. It's just a horrible existence. And this is where he is debating here. Okay? Everything that's going on in his life. His father died. His mother quickly married the uncle, which he detests. And not only does he detest the uncle, but he is completely shocked that the mother has completely done a 180-degree turn and married so quickly within a short period of time. I mean, she barely mourned. Barely the father was buried, and she was now in the arms and all happy. So to be or not to be. So is it to be? Are we going to be or not to be? That is the question. Now, whether it is nobler in the mind, right? Is it nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune? Or should we just take arms against a sea of troubles? We weaponize ourselves and fight back against a sea. Imagine the sea, an entire sea coming at you. Could you fight that? Should you fight it? Should you arm yourself and fight a sea coming at you? A sea of troubles. That's how much is that the weight is coming at him. He has to fight against his depression and what have you. Is it nobler in the mind? Is that the nobler thing to do? Nobler in the mind? To suffer? To suffer? Is it nobler just to suffer through it? Suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune? Or should you take arms against the sea of troubles? And by opposing, end them, finish them. Now, how is he going to go about that? Now here's the next line. To die, to sleep no more. So he's talking about death here. To die means you're not going to sleep anymore. And to sleep, and to say to die, to sleep no more. And by a sleep, to say, we end the heartache. We just end it. We end everything. The heartache and everything. We end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks. The 1,000 natural shocks. Yes, it's like you've been hit and beaten and kicked. Every kick is a blow and it's a shock to your system. To die, okay. So we'll go back. To be or not to be? That is the question. Now, whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer those things and hours of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. To die, right? To die, to sleep no more. And by a sleep, to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. Wow, that's wonderful. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. That's what he wishes right now, just to end it all. That's what is in his mind. And he's debating whether he should do that. But he's thinking about it and analyzing the pros and cons of that decision. It's not an easy decision. I'll go back. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them. to die, to sleep no more. And by a sleep, to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. Oh, 'tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep. Isn't that wonderful? To die, to sleep. To sleep. Wow. Now I'm going to go into a different type of sleep. Perchance to dream. In that sleep, perchance to dream. What dreams? There's the rub. Here's the problem. Because he doesn't know what those dreams are. He's never been there. Perchance to dream. Yes. There's the rub. There's the problem. Because in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, when we get rid of this mortal coil, this horrible existence, those dreams, what dreams may come when we have when we have shuffled off this mortal coil. Now we must give us pause. Wait a minute, we gotta stop here. We gotta pause here. Let's not make a decision so quick. So I'll go back here. To die, to sleep no more. And by a sleep to say we end the heartache. Sorry, there's a plane above me, but that's how it is. Sorry. Okay. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them. To die, to sleep no more. And by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep. To sleep, perchance to dream. There's the rub. For in the sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. Wow, we've got to stop here for a second. Now there's the respect there's the respect that makes calamity of such long life. That's why people live they go through a lot and they just go through it. That's the respect. That's the reason why they don't do it. They put up with it. They suffer. They get a terrible life, and yet they go through life like that because we don't know what's on the other side. It could be worse. Now there's the respect that makes calamity. The calamity, my God, what a calamity. There's the respect that makes calamity of such long life. Now, here's questions. Who would bear the whips and scorns of time? Who would put up with whips and scorns of time? Who would be beaten, be a slave, whipped? You go through hell. Who would bear the whips and scorns of time? The oppressor, the one that oppresses you. The oppressor is wrong. Who would put up with the oppressor's wrong? He oppresses you and he's wrong. The oppressor's wrong. The proud man's contumely, right? The whole walking around like, they're a big shot and they're right, and what they're doing is, people bow to them and what have you. The proud man's contumely. The pangs, right? The pangs of despised love, right? Terrible. Nothing is working your whole life. The pangs. Who would put up with that? The pangs of despised love. The law's delay. There's no justice. The law, it doesn't come to help you in those particular situations where there's an injustice done to you. The law's delay. The insolence of office, the government, their behavior, they parade their ways, and they get away with it. The insolence of office and the spurns. Now the spurns, that patient merit, the patient merit the unworthy takes. Patient merit is, you go through it, you're patient, it's like a merit. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time? The oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office and the spurns. That patient merit the unworthy takes. He'd rather go through it and be patient, just deal with it. The patient takes. the merit the impatient takes. For who fought, I gotta go back. Who would fathers bear to whips and scores of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office and the spurns that patient merit, the unworthy takes when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin. A bare bodkin is a dagger, a knife. He could just quiet everything down with just a knife to the heart. For who would fathers bear? Who would fathers bear to grunt? There's another plane, sorry, in cars. Who would fathers bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life? Who would sweat in intense heat, sweating and working 12, 14, 15 like a slave? Who would fathers bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life? Who would put up with that? Who would fathers bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life? I'm going to go back again, so let's go in the order. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office and the spurns, that patient merit the unworthy takes, when he himself may his quietus make with a bare bodkin. Who would fathers bear to grunt and sweat down the weary life with the dread of something after death? But that the dread of something after death, the dread, the fear of what's afterlife, after you die, the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country, that world that we know nothing of, that country, the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler returns. Nobody has come back and told you what's going on. Nobody. You have stories, but nobody can verify they're true or not. You think this is hell? Maybe it's 10,000 or a million times of hell over there. So why would you take a risk? You're smart. You make smart decisions based on actual information. He doesn't have the information to make a decision like that. So I'll go back. And I'll start from the beginning. Because it's important to see how it's moving. To be or not to be. That is the question, right? Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. To die, to sleep no more. And by sleep, to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is there too. Now that is a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep. To sleep. To sleep, perchance to dream. Ah, there's the rub. Aye, there's the rub. For in the sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of such long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office and the spurns that patient merit the unworthy takes when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Who would fathers bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will? It makes us rather bear those ills we have now than fly to others that we know not of. Why would you leave this world with all the problems that you have to go to others that you know nothing of? With all the problems over there, why would you leave this one to go to unknown problems? You don't know. Anyway, so you can see this debate back and forth. So, sorry, I just have to go back a little bit. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Now who would fathers bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others we know not of. Thus conscience does make cowards of us all. And thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with a pale cast of thought. And enterprises of great pitch and moment with disregard, the currents turn awry and lose the name of action. In all of that, he is saying, why would you risk it? Thus, conscience does make cowards of us all. That's how conscience, our thinking, puts a hold of it and says, wait a minute, I better be fearful. It makes us cowards of us all. And thus the native hue, and he's using here native hue, the native hue of resolution. So you ready to make a decision, a resolution, but the native hue, the essence of making a resolution, the native hue of resolution is sickly awe with the pale cast of thought. In other words, thought, and now you're thinking, it puts a hold on the pale cast of thought, and what you are ready to do at a moment, you're ready, and enterprises of great pitch and moment with disregards, the currents turn awry and lose the name of action. And that thinking about it, all that fire that you had ready to go is watered down, and now all of a sudden you stop. The currents turn awry and lose the name of action, and you don't take action. And now he says soft you. Soft you is he silences his thoughts, all that's going on in his brain, put a lid on, soft you. Now he sees the Pherophilia, which is everything. It's the only person that he loves and he can trust. Nymph, in thy orisons, in thy face, and in your presence, let all my sins be remembered. Meaning, whatever. So again, let's go through the speech. It's very important. One of the most important speeches in literature and an entire, out of all his monologues, his soliloquies, this is the most important and well known. So let's do it. To be or not to be? That is the question. To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. To die, to sleep no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. But in the sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of such long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office and the spurns, that patient measure the unworthy takes when he himself might his quietest make with a bare bodkin, who would fathers bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others we know not of. Thus conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with a pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pitch and moment with disregard the currents turn awry and lose the name of action. Soft you now, the Pherophilia. Nymph, in thy orisons be all my sins remembered. Anyway, thank you for listening. If you like this, subscribe, hit the like button, and again, thank you for taking the time to listen. Bye.